Welcome to NFL Nexus, your spot for getting way into the weeds on the strategy and team building that really defines this league. Today, man, we are zeroing in on the New York Jets, a team that is at a huge crossroads. Look, when your season goes as badly as theirs just did, the fallout is never going to be quiet, and it's definitely not small. We're not just talking about a few little tweaks here and there, we are talking about a total, down-to-the-studs overhaul of their entire offensive philosophy. So, in this explainer, we're going to unpack the complete shakeup of the Jets' offensive coaching staff. We'll look at who's out, and maybe more importantly, why. We're going to follow the absolutely insane week-long journey of their old offensive coordinator. It's a story that tells you everything you need to know about how volatile life in the NFL can be. And then, we'll dig into the really fascinating and maybe even a little deceptive search for his replacement. It's a search that might be about building something way bigger than just a new playbook. This is a story about consequences, crazy second chances, and the desperate hunt for a new identity. If you love digging into NFL strategy, do me a favor and subscribe and hit that like button so you don't miss any of our future breakdowns.
Everything. Literally everything we're about to talk about. Every firing, every interview, every single headline. It all starts right here with this number, 3 and 14. This isn't just a stat you glance at on your phone. It is the final, brutal verdict on a season that kicked off with Super Bowl hopes and just crashed and burned into the hardest of realities. For any team, a record this bad is a massive red flag that screams for radical change. You can't just chalk it up to injuries or bad luck or a few bad bounces. Nope, it means something at the very core of the operation is broken. And let's remember the context here, right? This wasn't supposed to be some rebuilding team. They brought in a future Hall of Fame quarterback. A lot of people, myself included, had the Jets pegged as a legit playoff team, maybe even a Super Bowl dark horse. So to go from that high to this low, that's not just a letdown, it's a full-on organizational failure that demands some serious accountability. This one number is the reason we're even talking about this. It's the catalyst that forced the Jets front office to make a move, and it set off this whole chain reaction we're about to break down.
And that, right there, is really the bottom line in the NFL. It's just that simple. You cannot go 3 and 14, present that record to your fans, your ownership, the media, and then just expect to run it all back with the same group of leaders. It's a total non-starter. In a situation like this, change isn't just an option, it becomes an absolute necessity. The pressure just mounts from everywhere. You've got the media asking tough questions every single day, you've got fans blowing up the call-in shows, and most importantly, you've got pressure coming from the very top of the organization. And when that kind of pressure cooker gets going, the first place everyone looks is the coaching staff. It's just the fastest, most direct way for a front office to show everybody, hey, we get it, the status quo is unacceptable, and we're taking this seriously. So as you'd probably guess, the very first domino to fall was a huge, immediate shakeup of the team's offensive brain trust.
Okay, so let's get into the first real moves the Jets made after that disaster of a season. This is where the consequences of that 3 and 14 record stopped being just a concept and became very, very real for a whole bunch of coaches. The season was over, decisions were made, and the firings began.
Whoa. Okay, so this wasn't like a small, targeted move. This was a full-on house cleaning. I mean, the Jets didn't just fire 1 or 2 guys. They moved on from a huge chunk of their coaching staff. The list is long. Charles London, the pass game coordinator and QB coach. Eric Washington, the D-line coach, so it wasn't just offense. Roosevelt Williams, an assistant D-line coach. Scott Turner, a pass game specialist. Aaron Curry, the linebackers coach. And Alonzo Escalante, another assistant. And right at the top of that list, the guy who was in charge of the entire offense, offensive coordinator Tanner Engstrand. When you see a list this long cutting across so many different positions, it tells you one thing. The team's leadership thought the problems were deep, systemic. This wasn't about one guy's play calling or one unit not playing well. This was sending a message that a complete reset was needed. But out of all those names, it was Engstrand's that really made headlines, for a pretty surprising reason.
So what's so wild about this is why his departure was such a shock. Normally, right, the OC of an offense that was as bad as the Jets would be the first one out the door. No question. It would have been the most predictable move in the entire league. But that's not how this went down at first. When all the other firings were announced, the initial reports from all the insiders were saying that Engstrand was actually going to stay with the team for next season. But, and this is a huge but, he was going to be stripped of his play calling duties. I mean, just think about that for a second. It's this weird, kind of awkward middle ground. It basically suggested that the head coach still valued him in some way, maybe as a game planner, but had zero faith in him to actually call the plays on Sunday. It was a really strange compromise. But then, in just a matter of days, something completely changed. And that sudden change of plans for Tanner Engstrand is what kicks off the next, and honestly, the most dramatic part of this whole story. For Engstrand, those first few days after the season ended were an absolute whirlwind. It's a sequence of events that just perfectly captures the insane, almost dizzying volatility of being an NFL coach, where your entire career can do a 180 in like 48 hours.
Yeah, this quote from a report at the time just nails it. I mean, really try to put yourself in his shoes for a minute. You go from being an NFL offensive coordinator to getting publicly demoted, you're told you can stay but in a much smaller role, then suddenly you're completely out of a job. And then almost before you've even had time to pack your office, you're suddenly a hot name on the coaching market. That's the brutal, lightning-fast reality of this business. One minute your career is just hanging in the balance, and the next you've apparently got multiple teams trying to hire you. Tanner Engstrand's week was just a textbook example of that wild ride. This timeline really puts it into perspective, just how unbelievably fast this all went down. So let's just walk through it. On day 1, Monday, he's the OC. By day 2, Tuesday, the plan, at least the one being reported everywhere, is that he's staying with the Jets, just not as the play caller. Now, that's a key point. It means some kind of conversation happened, a new arrangement was on the table. But just 2 days later, on Thursday, day 4, that whole plan gets tossed right out the window. The team announces that he and the Jets have officially, mutually parted ways. The door is shut. But man, it did not stay shut for long. Just 2 days after that, on Saturday, day 6, he's not just got a job again, he lands a major role as the offensive passing game coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. From OC to demoted to unemployed to a top job on a new team, all in less than a week. That is an incredibly fast and dramatic turn of events. So the really big takeaway here is that Engstrand didn't just find some job to hang on in the league. No, he landed firmly on his feet in a really important position with a brand new and highly respected offensive staff in Atlanta under their new head coach, Kevin Stefanski. The sources from that week said Engstrand was a popular name and had multiple options to pick from. Well, that tells you that other teams around the league saw his work a lot more favorably than that 3-14 record might make you think. It really makes you wonder, were the Jets' problems all on him, or were there much deeper issues going on? For Engstrand, it's an incredible rebound. And for the Jets, him leaving officially cleared the deck so they could start the massive, high-stakes hunt for their next offensive leader.
Okay, so with the whole weird Tanner Engstrand chapter officially closed, the spotlight swings right back to the Jets and the huge task they have in front of them. They are not just trying to fill a name on a flowchart here. They are desperately looking for a new direction, a new identity, and maybe most of all, some kind of creative spark to get one of the league's worst offenses going again. The pressure here could not possibly be any higher.
You got to give them some credit. The Jets didn't seem to rush this thing. Their process, based on the reporting, was pretty patient and methodical. They started by casting a pretty wide net, doing 5 initial interviews all over video calls. That's a smart way to efficiently hear from a bunch of different guys with different ideas without having to fly everyone all over the country. From that initial group, they did what you're supposed to do. They started narrowing it down. They got the list down to 3 finalists, and then they brought those guys into the building for the much more serious in-person interviews. That 2-step process, it shows they were taking this seriously, which you'd expect from a team that knows they absolutely cannot get this hire wrong. And here they are, the 3 guys who reportedly made the final cut. And what's interesting is that each one brings something totally different to the table. First up, you've got Greg Roman, who was most recently the OC for the Chargers. This guy is the veteran play caller of the group, and he is known all around the league for one thing: building these absolutely dominant, punishing run games. It's also worth noting he was let go after a playoff loss, which is way different than being fired from a 3-win team. Then there's Frank Reich. He's got a ton of experience, not just as a great OC who won a Super Bowl, but also as a former head coach. His name just carries a lot of respect. And the third finalist is Darrell Bevel, the former OC for the Jaguars. And the reports add a really tough piece of context for him. His offense in Jacksonville finished dead last, 32nd in points scored. So you've got a run game guru, a respected veteran leader, and a coordinator coming off a really, really tough year. 3 very different resumes.
So with these 3 very different candidates on the table, the search moved into its final, most important stage. But one of these guys, Greg Roman, came with a really interesting twist, a little piece of speculation from the reports that hinted the Jets' real plan might be way more creative than it looked on the surface. So before we get to that little twist, let's just establish Greg Roman's resume so we get why he's such a big deal. I mean, this is not his first rodeo. He has been the offensive coordinator for 4 different NFL teams: the 49ers, the Bills, the Ravens, and the Chargers. And you can see a clear pattern. Everywhere he's gone, he's built some of the best rushing attacks in the entire league. He's famous for building offenses around the unique skills of his quarterbacks, especially guys who can run, like Colin Kaepernick and Lamar Jackson.
He is, without a doubt, a legit, experienced, and very specialized candidate for the main job. But what if the main job wasn't the only job the Jets had in mind for him?
And there it is. There's the curveball. This one quote from Connor Hughes at SNY completely changes how you look at this whole search. The speculation was that the Jets might be interviewing Greg Roman, not for the top job, but for a completely different, more specialized role, maybe as a high-level assistant working under another coordinator. This one little sentence just opens up a whole world of possibilities. It suggests the Jets weren't just looking for one guy to fix everything. They might have been trying to assemble a powerhouse staff, a true brain trust of offensive minds.
So let's really break this down, because this is a fascinating bit of strategy. On one hand, you have option A, the obvious one. Greg Roman gets hired as the new offensive coordinator. Simple. He's the main play caller, the architect, he has full control. But then you have option B, this much more creative idea that was floated out there. In this scenario, Roman could be brought in for a more specific, high-level job like run game coordinator or maybe even associate head coach for the offense. The report even threw out a scenario where he would work under another finalist, Frank Reich. Now, this would be a really unconventional move, but it could be powerful. I mean, imagine pairing Frank Reich's overall experience and leadership with Greg Roman's truly elite, maybe best in the league, skill in designing a run game. It's like building a super staff. You bring in two huge coaching names to fix one massive problem. You create a system where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
And that really brings us to our final thought here. The Jets' offseason started with a very simple, painful problem. A 3-14 record meant they had to change their offensive coordinator. But as this whole search played out, the possibilities got way more complex and, frankly, a lot more interesting. The candidates were all different, and the report suggested the team was thinking about these creative, out-of-the-box staffing ideas you just don't see very often in the NFL. So the question we're left with is this. Are the Jets just looking for a new guy to call the plays, or are they in the middle of a much deeper, more ambitious search for a whole new offensive philosophy, one that's built not by just one person, but by a whole team of them? The answer to that is going to define their offense and maybe their whole franchise for the next few years. What do you think they should do? Go for one top guy or try to build that super staff? Let us know what you're thinking down in the comments. Thanks for watching this explainer on NFL Nexus. And hey, if you're looking for a fun activity for the NFL fan in your life, whether they're young or old, be sure to check out our line of coloring books. They're perfect for children, grandchildren, and adults too. You can find them through the link in the description or just by scanning the QR code on your screen right now. We really appreciate your support, and we'll see you next time.